You're probably used to most content creators showing you races where they've pulled off a really strong result. And I don't blame people for doing that. I did the exact same thing a couple of weeks ago at Watkins Glen, where I pulled off the best race of my journey so far. That's not what this race is going to be. This race is the other side of that coin, because Bathurst is one of my top 3 weakest tracks in the game. And I'm going to elaborate on how I've coped with that and how that's affected my approach to the race this week. So starting in P8, Key right behind us, I took a wide line through turn 1 because I was nervous of getting hit. I'm sure you've experienced that this week. I much prefer starting on the inside here, but starting on the outside, taking that safe wide line, it cost me time. You can see that we fell back a little bit from Gallo there. So I'm not too concerned because I knew Key would be smart enough to bump draft me, and you can take advantage of the concertina effect here to catch right back up. But it has to be said that the magic distance where you need to maintain to guarantee not falling out of the slip, to keep your fate in your hands, so to speak, at this track it seems to be 0.4 of a second. If you fall outside 0.4 of a second, you will actually be losing time, increasing the gap, the delta, to the car in front without actually being able to close on them, despite being only 0.4 of a second off of the car in front. And you're going to see that in this race. But for the moment, just trying to settle into a rhythm and stay with these guys. I'm not expecting a lot from this. I'm going to elaborate on why my mentality here is different to what you saw at Watkins Glen. After that huge success, why I have a different mental approach and expectations to this game. Gallo had fallen back himself very slightly there, and I chose not to bump draft him. I think that's why he flashed the hazards briefly, to say thank you for not trying to bump draft me too close, I'm not sure. I then felt that I was a little bit too far away from Gallo here, so I tried to brake a little bit later to catch up, almost hit Gallo, had to stay on the brakes, and actually made the situation worse. So these are problems where I've not fully settled into my rhythm and my flow yet. And Key actually mentioned, because I went back and I watched this from Key's perspective on stream, and he actually mentioned at that corner, oh, I feel like we might have slightly better pace than Luke, might have to get past him. And then going into this corner up here, the right-hander, he was saying, Luke, come on, don't lose the slip. And it's a valid concern, right? Because I have fallen back a bit here. But you'll see that if you nail, obviously 2 laps in a row I've had to do this now, if you nail the climb on the mountain perfectly, you can close up with the concertina effect. So you see it again there for the 2nd lap in a row where I close up. Now, going back to Key's perspective for a moment, and please don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm a faster driver than Key. I'm not saying, haha, you told your stream that I might lose the slip and then you did. But nevertheless, Key does provide a perfect demonstration of how easy it is to lose the slipstream. Now, in Key's defense, this is Bathurst. This is one reason why Bathurst has been a bit of an enigma to me. The other reason is I just haven't been able to get the seat time on this track. And if you're not in the flow, if you're not in the zone and in the rhythm with this track, it's going to punish you. And you can see that now with Key. I'm a keen sort of amateur chess player, but not really very good. And there's a saying in chess that one mistake leads to another. And what they teach is that it's not your first mistake you should be overly concerned with. It's being aware of the first mistake and not making a second mistake. And this is what happens with Key right now. And we've all been there. I've done this. And I'm not saying I'm better than Key. Please don't misunderstand me. Based on recent history, I would say give or take about the same level. But he's made one mistake and he doesn't manage to mitigate the effect of that mistake by not making any more. He starts overdriving the car in order to try and catch up. He nailed that corner and actually managed to close the gap a little bit, again due to the concertina effect. And that's where he needed to make sure there were no more mistakes, but then there's another mistake. and now we're pulling away more. So he's just outside this 4/10 range, and you can see that my car is getting smaller and smaller. In the old slipstream model, in the old dirty air tow model, this wouldn't have been such a factor, and that's what's happened with the races now at this level with custom slip. You are in a train where you have to be within usually half a second of the car in front, ideally even closer than that. Otherwise, you're out of the race, you lose the slipstream, and that's why you see lap times being set that would put the fastest lap in this race, I think, would put you in the top 20 globally on the leaderboard, and that's all the slipstream. He makes another mistake there, taps the wall, and then I believe he taps the wall again here, so one mistake just leading to another. This is what overdriving looks like. This is what failing to recognise that first mistake and correcting it leads to. We've all done it. I'm not pointing the finger at Key. I'm just demonstrating here how easy it is to lose the slipstream. And then Forest Elbow, this left-hander, in my opinion, the hardest corner on the track. It's my weakest corner on the track. It does affect my race later on, and it seals the fate of Key's race here. He gets a bad exit, he can't get the throttle down because there's not enough rotation, he's almost hits the wall, so he has to be careful on the throttle. The gap leaving Forest Elbow was half a second. By the end of the straight, the gap had grown to basically 1 second, I think. That's the power of making a mistake and not being within 4/10 of a second to the car in front. So going back to my perspective for the rest of the race now, let's run through the drivers in front, because this also helps you to understand my mindset on what I'm trying to achieve here, or what my expectations are. I don't know if Aluni is a former or current World Tour driver. I don't know if he might go by another name. I think Aluni might be his real name, it looks like. I'm not sure who he normally goes by in game, so either way, he's on that World Tour pace, right? He's definitely got that level. Breyer, I'm fairly certain I'm right in saying, has qualified for the World Tour in the past. I'm not sure if he qualified recently, but he has been a World Tour driver. That speaks for itself. Macho Monkey is what I would describe as an up-and-coming driver with incredible promise. I first came across Macho Monkey. It's not a name you easily forget. I first came across him on PS4 lobbies, probably over 2 years ago now, because don't forget I had a year out of the game. And I started P2 on that grid in an AA plus lobby. He started P1, and his qualifying time midweek was well inside the top 100 at the time. I specifically remember that. And he'd left me for dead in the first sector. He was gapping me on the first corner. Obviously I've closed the performance gap to him quite a bit since, but he's still quote-unquote fairly new to this in that sense. I think he's only been doing this a couple of years. We've become friends since. He drives for Sector 7 Esports, and very kindly I was quite overwhelmed with this invitation. He actually asked me to go and drive with Sector 7 for the league races that he does. He participates in some of the most prestigious league races, championships in Gran Turismo. So yeah, very fast up-and-coming driver. I think he's got incredible potential. G Humbert is his teammate in Sector 7, so also extremely fast. I'm not sure who P5 is, but his pace speaks for itself. He's obviously not having difficulty keeping pace with these guys. And then we've got Jose Serrano, multiple Gran Turismo world champion, and Valerio Gallo, multiple Gran Turismo world champion. These guys are capable of starting at the front of this grid. They usually start at the back of races. That's normally their MO, but it's quite hard to pass here, so they're choosing to start in the middle. And then you've got me. So when you consider the abilities, the pace of these 7 drivers in front of me, yes, if this was Watkins Glen, for sure I'd still be considering myself worthy of fighting for top 5s and even podiums and wins, as you saw a couple of weeks ago. But at a track that I haven't had a lot of time at, I haven't really raced this track properly at this level. The last time I properly raced it was a low A rank level a very long time ago now. I'll explain how this ended up happening later when the race gets a bit quieter, but essentially not expecting a lot from a track that I'm unfamiliar with. I'm talking about the nuanced details of what you need to, how you drive it at my level versus teaching a B-level driver the basics of Bathurst, which is easy. I'm talking about the nuanced, subtle details of what you have to do at this level. So I'm not expecting a great deal. If you ask me what is my rightful place in this race, if every single driver in this race, or at least the faster ones, didn't make any race-ruining mistakes based on qualifying position and racecraft, and everyone had a clean, largely incident-free race, where should I finish? On rights, on pace, etc. P8. That's my rightful position. Maybe P9, depending on what kind of race Key has. So my goal is just to stay with these guys, and if I can do that, I'm extremely happy. Next time we come back to Bathurst, I'll know it a little better, and maybe then I can fight for better positions. Heading into the pits here on lap 5, there's a little bit of fighting up here. Humbert gets pushed off track. It's not his fault, I don't think. It didn't look like it was his fault. I'm just going to pause it very briefly here to explain what I do and why. It wasn't Humbert's fault that he got pushed off track. It looked like an attempted overtake where there was contact. But regardless of fault, you still need to execute a safe re-entry to track. Now, he has dirty tyres, and he also is going slow. He's not travelling at race speed. So you really shouldn't be coming over onto the racing line. And this put me in a moment where I have to make a split-second decision. And your split-second decisions aren't always the right decision. However, I made a decision that worked. I'm not sure necessarily if it was the right decision. I had to decide inside or outside. Personally, I think Humbert should be looking to let me go, because he's travelling that slow, he'll lose the slip even going into the pit lane. So he needs me to go in front of him so that he can use my slipstream, because I'll be closer to them. I have to decide inside or outside, and he's on the racing line. I decided there was a risk if I went outside that I wouldn't be able to come back across him and get into the pits. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe that was possible, but you have to make a split-second judgment decision. So I decided to go inside. And I freely hold my hands up and say that is an illegal overtake. If you did that overtake in its own right, that's an off-track overtake, which is illegal. The game should probably penalise you for that, but it doesn't. And if that was a stewarded event, I think that overtake would be deemed illegal in its own right. But in context, it was accident avoidance. I've got to go left or right or get out of the throttle. If I don't do one of those three things, I'm going to hit Humbert. And I opted for inside because I didn't want to risk losing the slipstream by not making it into the pit lane. If I had to do a lap without these guys in front, I would lose a second to them, and that would be the race over. So, exiting the pits, we're in P7. Key's in the lead, but he hasn't pitted, so we're actually net P7. And this is where I want to talk about Forest Elbow, this one corner, the left-hander onto the back straight. So that's my weakest corner on this track. And the reason that it's a weak corner for me, it's very unique. And if you think about it, this is probably why you feel you might struggle with that corner as well. It's a completely blind corner. What I mean by that is lots of corners are blind. Lots of corners on lots of tracks are blind, but they open up when you get to the apex. So they're blind up to the apex, then you get to the apex, and now you can see the exit. So you can still use correct vision technique to see the line that you've got to take. And vision is crucial in having correct imports and driving fast at this level. But with Forest Elbow, it's blind on the way in, and then you have to rotate the car and get up to full throttle before the corner opens up and you can actually see the exit. Which means you can't rely on vision to do it consistently. You have to do it completely on muscle memory and feel. And given that this track's been a little bit of an enigma to me, I've had to develop the consistency there, and it is slowly coming to me. But you're about to see where I'm not completely consistent with it just yet. In fact, you can even see that Gallo, in front of us, world champion, actually had fallen back outside of that crucial 4/10 window to Josetti. And so I gave him a little bump draft and he flashed the hazard lights to say thank you. Once again, a recurring theme of my videos is that you have to work together at this level in order to keep pace. You don't want to go for a move, because simply going for a move will in itself cause you to lose the slipstream. So it's very difficult to go for moves. You have to do it at the right time, at the right opportunity. And if someone makes a mistake, you have to try and get past them as quick as possible. So heading back up the mountain again, you had a textbook demonstration last time round of what, on lap 6, of what forest elbow should look like when you do it correctly. The way I got the car rotated and then got on the throttle the last time round was near as makes no difference, absolutely perfect, with no meaningful time lost to Gallo whatsoever. Heading into Forest Elbow this time doesn't quite go the same way, and you're now seeing the weaknesses that I have with Bathurst and why this is one of my weakest tracks and why I have lower expectations with what I should be aiming to achieve this week. So I'm in touch here, I'm in the flow, I'm in the zone as much as you can be at a track you don't really like. Humbert's still right with me. We're heading into Forest Elbow and I'm telling myself just repeat what you did last time, and I don't. So I go a little bit deep here, I try to get on the throttle to make up for it, and I hit the wall. Now remember what happened with Key. You can't catch this back up, it's over, it's gone. So I immediately switched strategies and I short shift to slow the acceleration rate of the car, and even get out the throttle here to tuck in behind Humbert and work with him. My only hope here is to bump draft him, and if I can stay within 2 tenths at all times, 3 tenths tops, and bump draft him 2 to 3 times on each of the long straights, we can catch back up. The lower rank mentality there would normally be to fight, but that would only do one thing, that would guarantee you get P8 and nothing else. Because if you fight there, all that's going to happen is you lose the slipstream, and then you're a sitting duck to Humbert on the last lap, and he'll just fly past you on the straight and there's nothing you can do about it. As it happens, Humbert, I think, has a disconnect. So there was no contact there. I didn't feel anything in the force feedback at the time, and going over the replay there was definitely no contact there at all. So I can only assume what happened is that he disconnected. It certainly looked like that. But this puts me in a situation where I'm exactly where Key was now. So it's just later in the race, so there's slightly less of an impact on my race than there is on Key's. I've got no one to work with. I'm well out of the slipstream to Gallo. There's no way that's going to be caught back up. I actually start overdriving, which is really stupid, because what I should just do here is settle for 7th place, which is 1 position higher than I felt I rightfully deserved anyway. Overdriving is not going to catch it up, and I start doing on a slightly smaller level what Key was doing earlier on, and overdriving the car, and there's no one behind me to bump draft me. So my fate is sealed now due to a mistake at Forest Elbow. So one mistake on one corner. Sure, there were other mistakes in the race, but they weren't race ending, they weren't consequential mistakes. They were subtle mistakes that I was able to correct and catch back up using the concertina effect, the slipstream, bump drafting. That one mistake hitting that wall completely ruined my race. Well, not ruined it, sorry. It sealed my fate, it sealed my position. Gallo even hit the wall there. And for a brief moment, I was gaining on him. But because he's still got more slipstream, he starts pulling away again. So I will just elaborate now, in the last couple of laps, on why Bathurst has been such an enigma to me. So when I last raced it, as I said, I was a low A ranked driver. And it was only about a month later that I achieved A+, I think. So when I got A+, I actually left the game for a year. So that's reason number 1 why I didn't learn Bathurst as an A+ driver. If you're someone, pretty much anyone I think can relate to this, if you have moved through the ranks, worked your way up through the ranks, or are in the process of doing so and at least moved up even just 2 ranks, like from E to C, you probably already understand that you have to relearn every track for your new level. you understand more about the track for every rank that you move up. So having walked away from the game for a year, I didn't get to really learn Bathurst as an A-plus driver. When I came back to the game, Bathurst, for PD reasons, was one of those tracks that was just AWOL. It just wasn't getting used. When it did suddenly get used and came into Daily Race C like 3 times in fairly quick succession, due to health and personal circumstances, randomly to a degree, in those particular weeks when Bathurst was on, I wasn't really able to give it sufficient seat time to learn it at this level. So this really is the first time I've learned Bathurst at my current level. And yeah, it's easy to teach people the basic racing lines, the fundamental basic brake points, and how to drive Bathurst if they're a lower ranked driver. I have a regular student, Chris, in DG Racing, who first came to me as a B rank driver, and this was the track that he wanted to learn. And he learnt loads with me as a B rank driver on how to understand Bathurst. But at my level, there are so many more nuanced details you have to learn and understand that we don't really talk to coaching students about unless they're already sort of A+, and then we're going to talk about those nuanced details. So this is the first time I've really had to try and understand and learn those nuanced details at my level, and I'm pretty happy with the pace that I'm managing to find, and I hope next time round I'll be able to show a little bit more pace at Bathurst, a little bit more confidence here, and compete for better results. But in the meantime, for me, genuinely, just being able to hold on to these guys and knowing that one mistake was the difference between me holding on to Gallo as a world champion and falling back, I'm pretty happy with that. Ultimately, I don't think that mistake affected my position. Gallo didn't actually manage to improve. Josetti, I think, only got up to P4. I'm not really going to go for moves on those guys towards the end of the race unless it's a track I feel really strong at. Again, going back to those points I said last week, that I'll go for moves on people when I think I'm ready, not before. At Watkins, I was ready. At this track, I'd rather take it a little bit more passive. So for me, a huge victory at this track is just being able to stay with these guys, hang on to them, understand the track, build pace, and then we'll come back to Bathurst next time it comes up and see if we can improve. So thank you for watching, and hopefully that provides you with another little insight into how I approach things. Just because I had a really, really good week at Watkins a couple of weeks ago doesn't necessarily mean that I expect to carry that forward to every single week. And Bathurst, one of the weakest tracks, is definitely one of those tracks where I have to sort of temper those expectations a little bit and take a little bit of a different approach. So maybe something like this will help you with your races in terms of your expectations. Just focus on your own personal improvement rather than the race results. Let the race results come to you when you're ready. So thank you so much for watching, and a huge thank you to everyone who watched the one video that's gone over 7,500 views right now. Absolutely unbelievable, and I hope this content is continually of interest to you. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Take care.